Alright everyone, time for the second video of the day here. It doesn't really matter what order you put them in anymore. Like, usually you put in the best video first, but the problem is because of the processing glitches on YouTube, it no longer really matters. It's basically a grab bag. It's like playing Russian roulette with which upload will actually process first, regardless of, by the way, the length of the video. It's very strange. We gotta talk about this. Link in the description. I won't bother archiving it because Posobiec key's reasonably reliable. And this is purportedly a phone call involving Hunterbiden that was leaked. I don't know whether it's explicitly from the laptop, but in general, where he talks about doing business with the literal spy chief of China. And he's like, well, the fucking spy chief of all of China, and talking about some business deal he was involved in. This, you know, I'm assuming this is Hunter, and sounds like him, and I don't hear any denial from the Biden camp, so to speak. Why would he call a lid day? It appears to corroborate the tale that it wasn't just the Ukraine dealing that Hunterbiden did. Like, the whole thing about that is Hunterbiden was put on as a chair in an energy firm without any prior experience in business or in the energy sector. And then had these emails that were alluding to shares and sort of amounts owed to different people. And he's talking about the big guy, and that's purported by multiple individuals to be Joebiden. Which would be sketchy, certainly corrupt, if not illegal, since he was former VP at the time. It could be a conflict of interest, and certainly, in my opinion, disqualifies him in the sense of wanting a chief executive to conduct diplomacy at the highest level for strategic and military purposes. Not technically illegal, it's just really sleazy. The China deal, though, if you've got, on behalf, again, of a former VP with security clearance attached to that, working with the spy chief of a foreign nation in the explicit sense, if Hunterbiden his allegation here is true, and this is a private business call, so I would assume he's speaking candidly, that would be much, much worse than simply, well, I made a bunch of money from Ukrainian energy executives. Well, you know, Ukraine at the very least is not a main competitor, it's not a superpower, it's not a particularly hostile foreign state to U.S. interests. In fact, the government in Kiev is reasonably amenable to D.C. Beijing is the other dipole in an increasingly fractured world, which is constantly causing diplomatic and military issues for the United States, constantly making military threats and mocking our political system, and we do the same. I would think that would be the conflict of all conflicts of interest. But you probably haven't heard much about this from the legacy media. You won't even hear about it really on Fox. We are seeing the unraveling of the biggest political scandal in modern political history, at least since Watergate, arguably bigger than Watergate, and going back like Teapot Dome or the suspension of habeas corpus in the Civil War or something, some of the weird plots and treason of the antebellum period. You have to look at one of those defining major events that every reasonably skilled U.S. high school student has to read about 5 fucking times in every history course. You have to look at one of those scandals in order to find something that compares to what appears to be the case here. A political establishment, writ large, in short, a group within the political establishment, a well-connected political family, sold influence in their name to foreign states, including one, allegedly, according to this, that is hostile to U.S. interests. Further, and this is the part that worries me actually more, beyond the idea that Biden did business with communists, because of course that's not exactly a surprise to me. Lots of U.S. interests do. Trump has hotels and an account in China. Of course, not trying to peddle political influence there, because private citizen Trump is a little bit different than a former vice president, high security clearance, former hard-hitting senator. There's a little bit of a difference between the two. It's not a private endeavor. And by the way, if Trump were engaged in anything like this, in any capacity at any time, he'd be crucified. What worries me more, though, is the collusion, not just of the political establishment, but the entire corporate media complex to shut the story down thereafter. They won't even talk about it. Insofar as they mention it at all, they say it's a Chinese disinformation campaign, but it looks like the people that are in the pocket of China, according to, again, potentially, in this call, Hunterbiden himself, the people that are actually connected to Beijing in a capacity that would allow any screwy campaigning to go on is Joebiden. They're the ones that are in bed. Now, again, this does not surprise me. if you look at the relative policies of Trump and of Biden, long term, you can look at what they've said for decades, not even just in a capacity in office. Biden's currently not in office. He was also VP and senator. Trump wasn't a president before. He was a private citizen. Politically active, but a private citizen. There's astonishing degrees of regularity with what they've said and done throughout the last few decades of their lives, with regards to foreign entanglements especially. Donald Trump is a populist who has gunned after China and trade, who has essentially reordered large swaths of the entire Western fiscal order, and who repeatedly crows America first, threatening boycotts of China. I don't know why Beijing, if they wanted to get their way, would deliberately attempt to get a candidate hired who was going to hardball them, especially right now, during a pandemic when most of the world is in a recession. Now is not the time that China wants to be bullied around because they're vulnerable. And that's ultimately what it boils down to. Biden, meanwhile, again, purportedly, supposedly, according to his own son, it appears, is doing business with communist China at the highest level, is friendly with their spy chief, and yet he pretends that he's going to be tough on Beijing, and I just don't see that happening. And by the way, again, consistency. If we look through Biden's record, name a time that he's really been a hardliner on these foreign states, other than in name only. Like, back in the 90s, the Democrats would parade around and huzzah, huzzah, hail Columbia too, when it came to Kim Jong-il. I remember that back in the Clinton era and stuff. Oh, it was terrible. And then later on you have the axis of evil, and the Democrats don't have a problem with that moniker, for the most part. A little bit with Iran. And then, of course, in the wake of Iraq, the Democrats were kind of right on that, at least on the surface. But anyway, I don't see any particular reason to believe that Joe Biden is actually going to go after China, which is our main competitor, if not the main hostile foreign actor on the world stage. If there is the possibility that Joe Biden is in their pocket in some sense, do you think that their head spy chief wouldn't have been recording calls and attempting espionage? That's literally his job description. What the fuck else is he supposed to do? If he's doing business things with Hunter Biden, and Hunter Biden is probably in hotels in Beijing and Shanghai repeatedly fucking underage prostitutes and doing drugs and stuff, all sorts of stuff Joe could get blackmailed with. Nobody wants their son in a Chinese gulag for the rest of their short and miserable natural-born life, right? I would think that would be a security risk now, wouldn't it? But of course, the legacy media doesn't report on it, so half of America doesn't even fucking know this happened. In fact, most Trump fans probably don't even know that this particular audio exists. This is the most meaningful drop we've gotten. This is way worse than the emails. And Hunter Biden smoking crack and getting a foot job allegedly from his niece is definitely interesting, but it didn't involve Joe Biden or his campaign. The allegation here is that these business deals go higher than Hunter Biden. Why on earth, whether we're talking about the Ukraine bit, Beijing, allegedly Kazakhstan, what company would hire Hunter Biden, a known crackhead, a known degenerate, a loser, for an energy board or any other kind of business deal, unless it was to get through him to Joe Biden for political purposes? There is literally no other purpose. That's like if Barron Trump, who's still a teenager, is chosen, some foreign nation says, oh my God, we really want him to come here. We think he's a genius, and we want him to work in a nuclear energy firm or something. Why do you think they'd be doing that? It would be to get to Donald Trump. It wouldn't be because of Barron Trump, smart as he may be, and supposedly is. He's not a nuclear physicist. You know, they're like, oh, Don Jr., whose main acumen is business and money, we want him to serve on the Turkmenistan Forestry Board, you know, for the two trees in the country. Why would you do that? It has no bearing on anything he studied. He's not involved in forestry. He probably doesn't like nature very much. Seems like the sort of person who's more at home in the corporate boardroom. Why would you put him in such a position? Oh, that's right. He's Trump's son. I think we nailed down the reason why. Oh, why did you want Jeb Bush to come in and oversee as unofficial advisory chairperson to the tune of $5 million a year plus other benefits? Why did you want him to come in here to Brazil and be the tree toad monitor? He doesn't know anything he likes turtles, but he doesn't know anything about tree toads, and he doesn't speak Portuguese. I wonder why they wanted Jeb Bush there. It's not because of his political chops now that his career is over. It's to get a former president or any of the other dozen Bushes that have held office recently. Seems you can't get rid of them. They're a plague. But no, this is the most meaningful scandal that we've seen in possibly the last century. And a lot of people don't even know anything about it. It's a testament to propaganda now, isn't it? That's about all. Peace out.